This short little slideshow is intended to supplement the video that shows how to install the seat mod. Now, this slideshow is for the 6 models, and basically it's the same thing. So the first thing a guy needs to do is view the video that we have on our website that shows how to install the 7 and the 9 seat back. Now, all of the parts are basically the same, just dimensions slightly different. The kit comes with the stainless cross brace that goes behind the seats, the 2 seat back receivers that rivet to the cross brace and allow you to adjust the seat forward if you wish. There's a center support bracket made out of stainless that goes between the seat brace and the flap actuator housing to brace the actuator housing and the seat brace as well. It triangulates it. There's 2 cross brace finished cap ends, one for the left and one for the right, and there's a center support top cover that finishes off the top of the flap actuator tower. So, and a bag of rivets. So that's pretty much all the pieces. There's 7 major components plus a bag of rivets. So first thing you need to do is look at your kit and make sure that all of those items are in there. So now we'll go through some of the steps to install this kit. Now, I may pass on some of the steps, but those will be covered in the video. The main steps that I want to go over on this kit for the 6 are things that could potentially be different than in the video. So, to start with, the first thing a guy wants to do is pick a spot right behind the track for the canopy, the slider track, and take a tape measure and measure across the airplane and get a measurement of what it is in width across the outside, that you can go back and double check later this dimension and write it down on there someplace, because it's important that when you're finished that you get it back in the same location so the slider canopy works nice and everything. So the first thing you do is, as you can see here in this picture, you remove the rivets up on the top of the little plates that hold in the original cross brace, and you get those out. And then there's also some rivets on the front you'll see in the next photo. And obviously you move to the opposite side of the airplane, and everything you do on the right you do on the left, and vice versa. Now, after removing the rivets from the top on both sides, then you move to the ones on the front side and take those rivets out. There's one that's a little difficult. It's back in behind the top rail, so you have to kind of reach back in there with a sharpened up screwdriver or a small chisel and knock the head off of that one. It's almost impossible to get in there to drill that one out. But once you get these rivets out, there's typically 8 of them on each side in the front. Get those rivets out, and then the next step will be to remove this crossbar. Now, this crossbar, because of the sequence that it was put in, is pretty much impossible to get out of there in one piece. So the easiest way is, once you've got all the rivets out and you've taken a screwdriver and pried everything apart a little bit and can tell that all the rivets are out, then the next step would be grab a hacksaw, or in our case here we used a sawzall, and just cut the original cross brace in half, somewhere around the middle or a little off to one side. Once you cut it in half, it's pretty easy to maneuver out of there. Some of the 6s have these 2 little other pieces of angle iron in there, and you take those out. They won't be needed when you put the kit back in. Now these side top plates are considerably longer than they need to be, and by cutting some off of them you gain a little more side room on each side. So I've marked these off where I pretty much eliminate the outside or inside row of rivets. So those are some holes you won't have to deal with. It gives you a little more width and cleans the installation up a little bit. So mark off something. There's no magic to this, but just something in the vicinity of the line where I've drawn it here, and trim that off on both sides of the airplane. And it makes the whole job go smoother and the finished product come out nicer. Now once you've trimmed off these two pieces on the sides, you may want to take a file and put a radius on the leading and trailing edge of those little plates and clean them up so they're nice and smooth. It makes the whole rest of the installation come out a little more sanitary. Now this photo is a view of the plates that you just trimmed off on each side, and this is a view from underneath. Now the little arrows point at 3 rivets. Most of them have 3 or 4 rivets in this area, and I'm talking about the ones that go through the plate that you just trimmed off. You have to reach up underneath, make sure that none of those interfere. Grind all of these down. If there a couple of the rivets may be underneath the track for the slider canopy, and don't worry about that. You can just grind the bottom of them off, but these plates need to be flat in this area because the rest of the kit bolts up against these. So make sure everything is ground off under there and there's nothing that could interfere with the other parts you're about to put on. Now next, you grab the little side plates and you slide that up underneath the top plate that you had just trimmed off, and slide it back until it fits nice and flush with everything, and then clamp it in place with it slid back as far as it'll go. Now you'll want to check the dimension at the front and at the back of this new plate you're about to put in to make sure that it's parallel in the 2 areas that I have marked in the picture. Once it's parallel, then you can move them, put another clamp at the rear and clamp the 2 little plates, the top plate and the new finished plate, together. But just make sure that they're lined up nice and straight, because the next operation is to drill, and you don't want to get these in the wrong place because you only get one shot. Now once you have everything pushed back flush and you've compared the top edge to make sure they're parallel, because this is the position it's going to get mounted in, clamp the back or the top and the side, and then take your drill and go in from the back and drill through about 3 of the existing holes. This isn't as much a structural part as it is it finishes the kit off and gets rid of all the sharp corners. Now if you put about 3 holes in the front, 2 existing holes, and a couple in the sides, as you'll see in the next photo. Now cleco some of those holes that you'd already put in, and you can see in this photo we drill 2 through the side and a couple, 2 or 3 through existing holes that are already in the top plates. And you're going to put rivets back in these. Now that serves to plug the holes and tie everything together here again. Now this is the end cap installed. You can see 3 rivets in the front, 2 in the side, 2 or 3 in the top. You can go through existing holes in the top to finish it off, and no sense in drilling new holes. It makes it look nicer if you use the existing ones. Now you do the same on the opposite side of the airplane. Now these two pieces set the foundation for where everything else goes. So it's important that these two go in pretty accurately. Now once those side end caps are put in, now you can take the large piece of the kit, the crossbar, and you stick it in and you slide it all the way forward so it nests in the two end caps. And then take a clamp, like a welding clamp or a C-clamp, and clamp the three pieces together: the original top plate, the new end cap, and the new crossbar. And then you can proceed to drill the holes. Now, there's two holes already existing in the longeron where the little plastic blocks bolt down that hold the receiver pins on the canopy. Now, those two, you're going to drill through those original existing holes and through the stainless crossbar. And then those little brackets with the plastic blocks bolt right back down in their original location. You may have to get a little bit longer bolt, but most likely not. Typically the bolts that are in there are a little too long anyway. So those two bolts go back in, you bolt the little plastic blocks in the little U-shaped aluminum channel right back in their original locations, and then move back about an inch or directly centered on the crossbar and drill another hole. It allows you to put one more bolt, ties everything together better, and makes it extremely strong. Here you can see the three holes, the original two, and you drill those on through the stainless. Then move back where you see the blue circle, about in even spacing, or as close to center on the crossbar as possible. Drill another hole. Now, these holes tie it all together, and they're the most structural part, so take a lot of care and make sure these are really right. Now, after drilling both sides, so you've got all three holes opened up, you can remove the crossbar and deburr everything and get ready to bolt it back in. Also, it gives you an opportunity to paint whatever you want to paint on the sides before you put the crossbar back in. The three holes in the crossbar should look like what you see here in the photo. Pretty well evenly spaced and enough material around each hole to provide adequate support when you bolt it together. Before bolting in the crossbar, it might be a little more convenient to go ahead and rivet on the two seat back receiver pieces. Might be a little easier to work before the bar is in the airplane. Now, the holes in these parts we've put in with the laser, and they could be 2 or 3 thousandths too small, so it'd probably be worthwhile to run your drill through each of the holes after you've clecoed the pieces together, just to make sure that you don't get halfway done and then a rivet won't fit. But just rivet these on both sides. That's all that's required with the two receiver pieces. Here you can see where we've bolted the two aluminum channel pieces back on that hold the plastic guides for the canopy. And you can also see where we've installed the third bolt right behind that piece. Now, depending on each of these airplanes is kind of a one-off because they don't come pre-punched. So you may have to notch forward the little aluminum channel to make room for that third bolt head. The plastic will clear it fine, but the aluminum may touch it. On this one we had to notch it forward about maybe 3/16 of an inch to get clearance, and then bolt the cross piece in, as you can see here, on each side of the airplane. Next, we're ready to install the center support bracket. Now the bracket comes with holes punched in the top that bolt through the crossbar, and the crossbar comes with the holes already in it. And then the two holes that you see facing the camera on the center support bracket, we've made the bracket longer, and we've put these two holes in, and they're gonna line up further down on the vertical portion of the flap actuator tower, and you'll have to drill two new holes. We couldn't put these in a location where they're going to match the top, because we don't know where whoever built the airplane decided to put those holes. So what we've done is we moved them down about an inch down the back of this flap actuator tower, and you just reach back behind and you can run a drill through and put new holes, and you can attach this piece with a couple of little short bolts and with nuts. Here we see the piece with a couple of screws down through the top to line the holes up, and then we clamped it, and we're just reaching underneath the crossbar with a drill and transferring the two holes between the center support bracket and the flap actuator tower. Now, one more thing here to pay attention to is to make very sure that the flap actuator tower is pulled over and clamped in a position where it's absolutely centered with the bracket, because this is going to be where its home is going to be from now and evermore. So be very careful to make sure that you move the whole tower. It's kind of flimsy when it's unbolted at the top. Make sure you move it back and forth and get it absolutely centered, and then clamp it before you drill these two holes. This is the view from the other side, and you can see where the drill bit and the drill will actually go underneath the crossbar and clears everything, give you access to that hole. So just transfer those through the aluminum, and then you can bolt that center support to the flap actuator tower. You don't want to bolt it through the crossbar yet. Now this top cover for the actuator tower, we don't drill holes in it other than the two that you see marked in the photo. Now, if you take a couple of screws and put this part on and just put a couple of long screws down through the cover, the center brace, and the crossbar, that lines everything up nice. And then make sure it's slid down on there the way you like it, and then push the front of it back where it contacts, where the back of the cover contacts the front of the flap actuator tower, and then locate your holes. You should have a couple of existing holes, one on each side. Like I said, they're all different, so we don't drill those holes in where you see the clecos. You need to transfer them through yourself and mark them, and then drill those, and then your original existing screws can go back in each side to hold this top cover in place. Now, once that's in place and you have the screws in on both sides, then the top two screws here that you see marked you can pull out and put a couple of bolts in the top with nylocks on the bottom and tighten those down, and that pretty much sandwiches the three parts together, and then everything at that point becomes very rigid. Now here you see the kit pretty much completely installed. The seat back is in, and the little flap is lifted up and in the receiver groove. Now this position will be your new forwardmost position. This position is exactly where the seat was before we started. Now in the next photo you'll see that there's a remarkable difference. When the flap is put down and the seat is pushed back to the new crossbar, it pretty much makes it a whole new airplane. The difference in your seating position and comfort and room is just dramatically increased. At this point you'll probably want to get everything out of the way and grab some cushions and sit in there and just try it. Now here's a view from the other side, or the outside edge of the airplane, with the seat forward. And you see all of the components there, and the little plastic blocks are back in that receive the canopy pins and all that. Now this is with the seat pushed to its forwardmost position. And here's basically the same photo with the seat in its rearwardmost position. Quite a substantial difference. This is the front view with the seat put all the way back. So right here we're pretty much done with the installation of the kit. If you just dive in there, you could probably do this in an hour or two with ease, unless you have to do some paint work or something. But the installation goes pretty fast. Not a lot of parts and not too much work. And we pretty much guarantee that you're going to be happy after you get this in there, because it makes the airplane so comfortable and so much more roomy. Now, if for some reason you run into some issues or have a problem, just give us a call. Anything we can do to help or accommodate you. Or if you mess a part up and need a replacement or whatever, just give us a call. We're always glad to talk to fellow RVers. So, fly safe.